I think we have a quorum now.
Happy Valentine's Day, Madam Clerk and Madam Administrator. Oh, that's not Natasha.
I'm going to go ahead and go ahead.
No,
And,
her hair is a little longer than this one.
let's go ahead and call this meeting to order. Attorney Brown.
Good morning, Mayor Johnson and Commissioners. We will request a motion to go into executive session for the discussion of personnel, potential or pending litigation, as well as real estate.
So move.
Second.
So, Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Voting.
We got 4. I'm waiting on Mr. Mason. Okay. You doing good. You doing good. Yeah. 6, 7, and 10 are out. Yes. That motion carries with Mr. Lewis, Mr. Franham, and Mr. Guilfoyle out.
All right. Let's proceed to executive session. Brown? Are we ready to call for a motion for the closing, for the closed meeting affidavit? Yes, sir.
We're ready, Mayor Johnson.
Attorney Brown, are there any other motions?
We'll request a motion to execute the closed meeting affidavit.
All right, we
So moved.
have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, voting?
Ms. Pulliam? Okay. It's unanimous.
All right. Madam Administrator, before we move into the committee portion.
He has 3 motions.
Mayor Johnson, we do
Yes.
have some motions as a
Okay.
result.
You got, proceed, Attorney Brown. My apologies.
Well, thank you, sir. We request a motion to approve hiring of Mr. Eddie Blanton as Augusta, Georgia Junior Surveyor in the Engineering and Environmental Services Department at an annual salary of $54,550, and the customary benefits provided Augusta employees with the effective date of March 4th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, voting?
Who? Okay. Mr. Guilfoyle? Okay. It's unanimous.
All right, Attorney Brown?
Mayor Johnson, we will request a second motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the settlement of all claims by Larry L. Hodson in the total amount of $45,000 payable to Mr. Hodson and his attorney, and waiving any other Augusta, Georgia ordinances and codes in conflict therewith.
All right, have a motion. There's,
So moved.
so there's a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, voting?
It's unanimous.
Attorney Brown, are there any more motions?
One last motion, Mayor Johnson.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. We request a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing settlement of all claims by Adriana Talbert in the amount of $150,000 payable to Ms. Talbert and her attorney, waiving any codes of Augusta in conflict therewith for this instance only and for other purposes.
Thank you, Attorney Brown.
Okay, we have a motion. You need a second? Who's Mr.
Second.
Johnson? Okay.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, voting?
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Madam Administrator?
Mayor Johnson, I would like your consideration in adding an item to the special call meeting agenda. That item is captioned for the commission to determine the status of RFP number 23-500, which is for the emergency 911 ambulance services for Augusta, Georgia.
All right, I don't think that requires unanimous consent, but there are some.
It does.
It does, okay.
To be
So,
added.
but before we vote, there is a question from the commissioner from,
Mayor Johnson, prior to any discussion, it would be appropriate to request unanimous consent to add the item to your agenda.
all right. So, without objection?
Mr. Guilfoyle raised objection to the item being added.
All right, so we can't add it.
All right.
I guess
Therefore,
we're done?
the item cannot be
It
added.
cannot be added.
Yes, sir.
Or
you.
discussed.
All right. So I guess that concludes.
May I?
Commissioner from the 5th.
Yes, Ms. Bonner, can you add it to the agenda for next week?
Which,
The item that she wanted added.
okay,
All right.
you
Thank
want to add it to the commission agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay.
All right, Ms.
Anything
Bonner,
else?
are we ready to call public services to order?
Let's go.
Just let me know when you're ready, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
All right, any additions or deletions to the agenda today?
No, sir.
All right, if there's no questions from the body, I'd like to consent the following agenda items. Number 1, number 2, number 4, and number 9.
Okay, I didn't get, Mr. Williams,
Got a motion, can I get a second?
was that you? Okay, Mr. Bobby Williams, I need a second.
Second.
Got a
Okay,
second.
Ms. Pulliam.
All right, voting please.
It's unanimous.
All right. Ms. Bonner, let's just go straight down.
Okay.
Number 3, please.
Item number 3 would be to receive an update from staff regarding the cost and additional work progress on the repairs to the scoring towers at Diamond Lakes Park.
Okay, as we discuss this item, let's make sure that we talk about the future, and let's talk about, let's not mention any names of companies if we can. Thank you. Director Lamb.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. As stated previously in the updates, that we were going to have, two
Is that my
vendors come out to do an assessment on those towers. The first was Yohi Plumbing, who did a camera and video of all the drain lines on both towers, which is 20 on one and 20 on the other. The findings in that situation was that 12 drains on one tower were clogged and 14 on the other. So at this point, the vendor has stated that they cannot be just chiseled out, that they have to be replaced. So that's one of the objects that has to be done. So all of the drains, the 26 have to be replaced. Secondly, we had on Monday, February 6th, we had the vendor come out to do an evaluation, and we walked the towers top to bottom. Some of those same findings occurred in this situation. A lot of those things that were discovered could be done later on, but to get the towers fully functional in operation, those pipes have to be replaced, and also a ventilation system or moisture barriers have to be put in the restrooms. So it's two things that have to take place in order for us to get those towers back up and operational. That'll be the pipes being replaced and then the bathrooms being redone. I did reach out to our contractor that is on site, who we have a stop work order on, to get a cost estimate of what this would be. At this point, we're looking at about $788,359 to get those towers back up and operational. At that point, we'll be able to reopen the towers. I'm asking for a total of $850,000 if we were to go that route, only because after that's done, we still have to do the mold remediation to the building as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Thank you. Intern Director Lampkin. Last time you was before us, I asked, I think the interim administrator, if any permits was pulled, any inspections done, and she did reply to all the commissioners, no permits has been pulled. My concern in moving forward, and I think this might be a lesson learned, 5 years ago we had an incident at the right behind the Maxwell facility on Lumpkin Road where a child had lost his life. We got rec department, we'll have your department and other departments trying to do work without pulling permits and no inspections being done. You know, policy was changed a couple years back where it doesn't cost within the government any fees, but it's still a requirement to follow procedure. So far, just in this Diamond Lakes, we already spent close to $900,000.
As far as I know, we're at that point. But to your point, also in the proposal that we have, that would include a 12-month warranty, insurance, permits, and a performance bond on that work.
And so all the work that was done is compromised now. If it's the pipes underneath and you got tile with the protector wrap from a licensed person to install it, all that gets compromised when you have to remove them pipes. Would that be correct?
Well, how those pipes operate is they come in through those drains on that second level, and they all go to one trunk line that goes this in the center of the towers and then out. So replacing those lines wouldn't compromise anything else, but they have to be replaced because you cannot just clean them out.
Thank you, Mr. Lampkin.
Commissioner Mason, please.
Is your mic on?
That mic's not on.
Yeah.
Okay,
Doesn't sound okay.
all right.
Doesn't sound like it's.
Check, test.
Okay, you sound a lot louder than he does. All right, Mr. Lampkin. Let's see, what was I going to say here? In reference to the dollar value or the estimate that you put out there, does that include the ability, would you say the scoring towers will be corrected? Does that include as far as the concessions area being finally up to par and operational?
That would be correct.
Okay, and okay, well that's important to know. That's the main thing that I wanted to make sure of. And okay, yeah, also inside the latrines where we saw a lot of the rusting utilities such as the sink and dispensers and so forth. Where are we at with that?
In this proposal, it would gut the bathrooms completely, which you're going to have to do anyway because you have to get to the pipes. So you will gut the bathrooms completely, and there will be new sinks put in with automatic soap dispensers,
That's what I need to hear.
and paper towels.
That's what I need to hear. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Williams.
How much would it cost to rebuild those towers?
In today's market, you're probably looking, just to take them down, you're looking at probably about $2 million a piece to take them down and remove them. That's just with the demo, at least $1.5 million. And then to rebuild them, I think at one point we had a price for, you're talking 3-4 years ago, a price that I've seen where it was like $1 million per tower to rebuild, depending on what model you go with. So you're looking at $2 million there plus the demolition and removal of the old towers.
Yeah, well, we're headed towards 2 million.
Structurally, like I said, we had another vendor come out. The structure of the towers is not bad. It does need some cosmetic work, which we can which in my evaluation and what I'm looking at is once we get the buildings operational, you can kind of phase those things into it. At this point, it was not recommended by either company to tear the towers down because the bones of the building are good. It's just some minor details.
So that recommendation for 800,000, that was just for one building?
No, that's for both.
For both of them?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Administrator, if you could also talk about funding sources after you answer. I think you've got something you want to say, but after that.
Sure. Before the commission makes a decision concerning our pathway forward, the Diamond Lakes project has been plagued with issues that have caused some procurement concerns. So I would like the procurement department director to speak to if this is the preferred pathway forward, and if not, for her to provide her recommendation on how we proceed. Concerning the $850,000 ask, I would like for an opportunity to go back and speak with the finance department and review other funding options to see what would be the best course of action, and then provide a recommendation to this body on next week.
Okay, that sounds great. Before we get Ms. Sams, Director Lampkin, is this pretty much the only option we have? I mean, what is another option we have besides the $850,000, I guess?
None. If
That's-
you want the buildings back up and running.
That's what I thought. Okay. All right. So I guess Miss Sams, is she here? And we can just talk to how do we, I guess, start this process? Because it seems like it's going to be. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Commissioners. There was a meeting held, I guess, about a month ago. And in that meeting, the procurement department did in fact review all of the expense that we had already expended. We also looked at the various department that played a role in this. And my determination at that time was to get an engineer or an architect to walk through the building and outline exactly what Augusta needed to do and assist Augusta in placing a bid on the SCRIG. What you're hearing now is in line with that conversation. So I will go along with what the director has given you.
Okay. What is the typical time frame it would be if this body was to approve it next week? What's the timeline on something like this?
Well, from what this director has shared with me is that because there are vendors that he has already received bids from, it will be within the next 10 days. Within the next 10 days.
Okay. Thank you. All right, committee, what's the pleasure here? And would you be able to give us a funding source by next Tuesday? Yeah. I think we have to.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Would be with the funding source identified at the next meeting, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I get a second to that? Second. Got a second from Commissioner from the 10th. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
All right, Ms. Bonner, we're going to combine the following agenda items for this next one: 5, 10, and 11. Combining all 5, 10, and 11.
Item number 5 will be dealing with the agreement MOU of the Augusta Rowing Club. Item number 10 will be in association with the Recreation and Park Sports Council meeting with Ms. Buckaloo to discuss the needs of the rowing club. And number 11 is to discuss the needs for the waterfront races.
Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you, Chairman Frantum. Staff, can we get an update on the current lease agreement between Augusta, Richmond County, and...
Did you need these, or do you have them? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
Do
ma'am.
you all need copies of the agreement?
Let's just pass
They
them
were
out.
emailed out to us, but yes, ma'am, that would
You
be
want hard
helpful.
copy?
Yes, ma'am, that would be good. Thank you, Ms. Bonner. If we could get a staff update on the agreement between Augusta, Richmond County, and the rowing club as it pertains to maintenance of the boathouse, please.
Okay, Director McDowell, you're going to speak to this?
Good afternoon, Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, committee members. As it relates to, if I understand the Commissioner Pullum's question correctly, it's in regards to the MOU. So I would probably defer to one of our attorneys to speak on the aspects of the MOU that we have in place. As it relates to our meeting with the rowing club, we did as directed. And we've been able to work out an agreement with the rowing club moving forward with their needs at the particular site. So we got a short-term plan to address their immediate needs as it relates to them being able to have access to their equipment and moving forward with some of the regattas and events that they have planned coming up in the future. So we got that pretty much squared away. Long-term plans in terms of the facility, I think Central Services will be here to speak on that. And then, Of course, the MOU is, I think, is what Commissioner Pullum is asking about. Will probably be more germane for legal to kind of weigh in on that.
Thank you.
Attorney Brown, can you speak to Commissioner Pulliam's question?
As I emailed you earlier this morning, Commissioner Pulliam, the attorney assigned to Parks can answer any question you have regarding the lease between Augusta Rowing Club and Richmond County, Georgia, which dated back to 1996. That's Senior Attorney Sam Miller is present.
Commissioner Samuel Meller for the Law Department. I'm available to answer the questions that you have.
Yes, sir. May I speak? As it pertains to the lease between Augusta Richmond County and the rowing club, who is responsible for the maintenance of the boathouse under said lease?
It appears that would be the rowing club.
May I ask another question?
Sure.
So as we were in discussions last week about the renovations that needed to take place for the rowing club, that full responsibility or maybe none of that responsibility would fall to Augusta Richmond County, as I read the lease. Is that correct?
There are a lot of aspects to that question, Commissioner, regarding that matter. The question of totality is more complicated than just a yes or a no. We would be happy to brief you by email about that question in particular.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Commissioner Guilfoyle, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Director McDowell. I know that the rowing club came before us last week. They asked to be on the agenda. When did they actually reach out to you?
Reached out to me?
Yes, sir. Or to the administrator or to whoever within this government?
That I can't answer. I have to get Coach Brad to come up and ask that. Once I saw it on the agenda, that was the first knowledge I had about them asking or inquiring. My understanding conversations, Coach Brad just was at the facility when risk management was doing their assessment and had some conversation with risk management, hence how they got information about the facility and the possibility of it being closed, which prompted them to get on the commission agenda.
So you didn't know anything about it before last week then?
No, sir, because risk management hadn't completed their assessment and disseminate that information to Central Services as well as Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Director Maurice McDowell.
Commissioner Bobby Williams.
Yes, sir. Administrator Dowse, Mr. McDowell, and Sports Council was supposed to meet with these people. Can you tell me about your meetings and whether or not we can help them? Anybody?
Sure. Director McDowell was present during the meeting. I sent a delegate from my office, my deputy, Charles Jackson. And so Director McDowell can speak to those details concerning both of those meetings.
Yes. So, Commissioner Williams, we did have a meeting with the Sports Council as well as Coach Brad from the rowing club. We talked about some of the things that they needed in terms of short term for that particular facility. They expressed a vehement desire to stay at that location because transportation would cause problems as well as moving that equipment and finding a suitable storage facility. So we worked out an agreement with them where they can continue to occupy the space. They will probably do a lot of their activities on the exterior of the facility in the short run until we can come up with a long-term plan on how we're going to remedy some of the issues that's going on with the boathouse itself. And Coach Brad is here to speak if he wants to, as well as Michelle from the Sports Council.
If he would, but I just need to know, I mean, do they have a monetary ask? Do we need to find them a building or whatever by next November?
The only monetary short-term that they asked for Parks and Recreation was for us to take on the costs associated with some of those portalets that they have on their grounds when they do have activities there for restroom use. And so we've agreed to do that. So that'll be coming through Parks and Recreation budget from that standpoint. Everything else that has to improve the facility for long term, for them to have be able to go back into that facility. Again, that's a conversation that we had in concert with Central Services who has a plan in place. If you guys have some questions about that, as far as moving forward and possibly being able to get them back into that facility.
Okay. Chairman, can we bring up the other person?
Sports Council's Michelle. And Bob, this is Bobby. Brad. Does Brad want to come forward? If you could please state your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. Michelle Pippin, 1726 Holly Hill Road, Augusta, Georgia.
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Williams.
And I am Brad Holdren, the head coach at the rowing club, 1617 Georgia Avenue, North Augusta.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Man, we just trying to help out a little bit and trying to make sure that we help you all get off the ground on next November. So you have anything else to add to what Mr. McDowell has already said?
No, sir. The best short-term solution is that we continue to use the building as a garage to store the equipment, and we do all of our activities outside for the time being while the commission comes up with a longer-term plan for the boathouse. When it comes to the point where we have to remove and store all of our equipment, then we'll have to address that with some big storage needs. But right now, the best place to store everything is right at that location.
Yes, sir. So I'm thinking that if you've got something that you think Recreation can remedy, go to them. If you need to come back to the commission, then so do that. But right now, I guess we can just accept it as information.
Sure. Did Michelle have anything else you wanted to add? No? Okay. Okay. All right. Can I get a motion to receive his information?
So be it.
Second. And just for clarity, Commissioner Williams and Commissioner Pulliam, like all your answers were between the three agenda items. We're good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Agenda item number 6, please.
Item number 6 is an update on Pendleton King Park.
Commissioner Pulliam.
Thank you, Chairman Frantum. Director McDowell, you're popular today. I would like an update on Pendleton King Park. I know that we are still working through some things as far as the contract is concerned, but are there any plans as it pertains to summertime is coming? And of course, things can happen all year round, but have we looked at how marketing the park and, you know, what that looks like as far as economic impact, the value that that park brings?
Appreciate the question.
And that was a loaded question.
I understand, and appreciate the question. And again, I'll also be remiss if I didn't acknowledge, thank you for taking some time out of your busy schedule to come over to Parks and Recreation and spend a little time with myself and staff to give us some great insight on some of your expectations as we move forward. So I appreciate you coming and sharing those sentiments with our department. As it relates to PKP, as you mentioned, the most critical thing for us moving forward is getting an agreement in place. We've been absent of agreement since 2015. And so we'll continue trying to work out those, I would say, hurdles that we've had in terms of getting a meeting of the minds. I think we're there. I've reached out to the president of the board several times. They have an attorney that they're working with. As soon as they can get me the latest version of the contract from their attorney, I can get it to our law department for them to review. And I think we can have a meeting of the minds as it relates to that. So that would be step one, to make certain that we have a long-term relationship in place there so we can begin to invest in that particular facility. As it relates to a long-term plan there, so Parks and Recreation is in the process of not only working on our strategic plan, but also looking at updating our master plan. The last time we did our master plan was in 2016. Rule of thumb, you do it every 5 to 7 years or so. It's time for us to update that. Once we're able to get that completed, course, that will have a plan in place that's more germane or more site-specific as it relates to PKP. So those are the things that we're working on to try to get those things. The first thing for us is, before we can really try to invest some capital improvements in that site, that we at least have an agreement in place which protects the taxpayers of the city of Augusta, because that property is owned by the trust.
Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Quick question, Mr. McDowell. How much money are we spending a year on maintenance at Pendleton King Park? Maintenance and grounds maintenance.
Our budget is a little, I guess, fickle in trying to narrow it down to $1 because we share so many resources.
How much do we
PKP budget is roughly about $300,000-400,000 for that site. But again, that's personnel, and then we utilize that personnel in other sites as well. But particularly as we get back into the grass growing season, cutting season, planting all the flowers and that sort of stuff, it's going to require a lot of our staff, a lot of manpower. That's sort of been our Achilles heel, is not having enough staff to be able to have enough staff designated for that particular site. So we're working on those things. One of the beautiful things we're able to do with last year's budget going into this year's budget, so great work from the administrator and her staff, giving us enough funds to hire some private contractors to kind of help offset some shortage that we have in terms of personnel.
So it's, you said $300,000 to $400,000. You said that's just for personnel. So the only cost that we're absorbing is personnel costs.
Well, it's
payroll.
Mostly personnel, but of course we also purchase shrubberies and all the sort of things that go in that. We do a lot of capital improvements.
So what
We get a lot
is
of
the total
vandalism.
cost, taking into consideration the cost for shrubbery and grass cutting and stuff like that?
I would like to be able to get you that in writing, because there's a lot of capital improvements from vandalism and stuff like that we have to go back, and we do those things on a continuous basis. So to get you that true and accurate cost, we'll get that, we'll forward it to the administrative office, and then she'll be able to disseminate that, because it fluctuates. Sometimes we spend more than what we're budgeted for, just based on if we got vandalism, if we got something. We just, last couple of weeks ago, we had to replace the fence on that backside.
Is any of this stuff done in partnership with the foundation out there?
They do a lot of it. Like, they got a gardening club. They do a lot of planting and stuff out there. But again, as the garden club make improvements to the site, then it becomes the onus of us as a department to maintain it. So if they plant a garden or what have you, that cost shifts to us to maintain it. So sometimes we have issues with that, because sometimes we're not really aware of what's going to happen until after it's happened, and then we have to adjust to those type of events. But we try to keep a good relationship, working relationship with the foundation moving forward. So,
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any form of other discussion on this?
I would like to say that in our meeting, and thank you for, having me out. You and the staff were so welcoming, and I truly appreciate that. We discussed, because I know that there are a lot of entities or a lot of departments that have partnerships with local colleges and things of that nature. So we went into a discussion about how certain partnerships may be of benefit to not only Pendleton King Park, but to other parks as well. So we have a lot of companies and nonprofits that would like to volunteer their time and their efforts to certain projects. And so I'm hoping that as we move this discussion forward, that, some of the costs that staff or that departments are absorbing in those partnerships, we can actually balance it out. So we talked in a great detail about that, and they already have some partnerships, which is great. So working on getting more, I think that would be great. So,
thank you, Commissioner.
Agree. Okay, can I get a motion to receive his information?
So be it.
Got a motion? Can I get a second? Second. Got a motion and a second. Voting, please.
It's unanimous.
Agenda item number 7, please.
Number 7 is a request for an update from transit on new buses being added to the fleet. Commissioner Williams' request.
thank you, Chairman Frantum. Ms. Dowdery, if you could please come up.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners.
Good afternoon. Thank you for being here today. I would like an update on the buses, the fleet, as far as what is our estimated time of arrival for the new buses that were coming in. Where are we at with that?
Okay. We ordered 6 new diesel buses from Gillett Company, and
Can you
they
hear?
are to go online in April.
Ms. Dye,
Yes.
you pull the mic, yeah, well.
Can you hear me now?
We've having mic problems today.
Yeah.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. So, as I was saying, we ordered 6 new diesel buses, and they are to go online in April. I spoke with the manufacturer, and he said that it would be around May or June when those 6 vehicles will come to Augusta.
Have there been any, I know at one point there were surveys going on as far as the routes, and are our routes still effective in servicing Augusta, Richmond County? Are we still doing those surveys? Have we gotten the results of those surveys? Where are we at with that?
Okay, the surveys are still being performed at this time. There's 2 people that we have riding the buses, and they're going on all routes to question the ridership. Some answer, some don't, but it's still in process. And it should be finished probably, we're in February, I'm gonna say around March, it should be completed. And then we can compile that data to get it back to you.
And as it pertains to the ridership, how is that ridership being calculated? As people get on and off the buses, is there a certain equipment in place to count the number of people that get on?
I'm sorry. We count ridership based on our fare boxes. So as someone gets on the bus and they pay their fare, then that operator punches a key and it counts that person. And even if it's discounted fares or what have you, it's still counted. So that's how we do that. And I mean, since you mentioned the fare box, we are looking to replace fare boxes because we haven't had an update on our fare boxes since 2010. So that's one of the things that I need to come up with some funds to get those replaced because they are now aging.
Okay, Administrator?
Thank you.
Commissioner, I wanted to make sure, in addition to the 6 new buses Director Daugherty just spoke about, that you were aware from emergency action that took place last year, the 3 buses that we ordered from Florida, they have arrived. We have them outfitted with Augusta information on the side, and those vehicles are on the street. And we continue to work with Athens-Clarke County for the additional 3 buses. So you should have noticed an increase in response times as it relates to our transit system, as well as a decrease in complaints.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dowdery. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to receive his information, please? Got a motion and a second. Voting, please.
It's unanimous. Item number 8, discuss our different codes and nuisance ordinance code to hold business homeowners more accountable and make our community safer.
Thank you. So before I start, just to let everybody know, please keep Mark Bowen in your thoughts and prayers, our coroner, as he is dealing with an illness. And I start this conversation to say we are doing a workshop on February 23rd. So we probably won't get as a deep dive, but I felt like it's important to start the conversations based on some of the meetings that I've had, some of the meetings I met with Commissioner Johnson, that we'll talk about in just a second. But basically, the crux of this issue is that we've got to hold businesses and homeowners more accountable. In 2022, late 2022, myself met with the coroner and the director, Delaney, about the deaths happening in hotels in Augusta, Richmond County. And it's at a staggering number of hotel deaths that happen in this county, mainly hotels that either don't have security or they check in a room and then they never go into the rooms within the time frame that the people are staying in the rooms. They're allowing people to stay for extended stays. And frankly, when you see what's been going on, we got to do a better job of holding these hotels more accountable. Myself and Commissioner Johnson met with, along with the CVB, met with a few hotel owners a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago now, and they voiced their concerns around what was going on around the properties. All of these hotels, I'm pretty sure, have private security that they've hired on their own. And frankly, some of the issues are coming from nearby hotels that are not having the private security. I put in the packet today 2 properties that I've got all these facts from Richmond County Sheriff's Office. Basically, it's the Raceway and the BP on Washington Road. Now, I represent this area, so I went to the area asking, because I know there's been a lot of traffic on things, but when you look at these 2 locations in the document and see the number of calls for service by the Richmond County Sheriff's Department, understanding that all of these are not because of what happened at the location, but because the location is not doing anything to basically clean up their act, it's pretty significant to see that many, 124 at one and 70 different aspects on another at the other location. And when we look at one of these locations, had people living in the car wash behind the BP. The fact that we still let this business operate right now is disturbing, and this isn't the only one in Augusta, Richmond County that we need to look at. There's another list that the Sheriff's Department's put together for me across the entire county that I wasn't able to get ready to share with the commission, but we'll get that to them. But when you have someone sleeping in a car wash, when you had a death at a hotel 2 weeks ago, and we condemn one room, and the room's back open in 24 to 48 hours, that's a problem. And we, as elected officials in this body, we need to help out the Sheriff's Department. The Sheriff's Department's short deputies, we all understand that, but we also know that they're spending time on some of these areas that they don't need to be spending time on if we were holding these accountable to the business owners. Also, when you look at the Health Department doesn't check property maintenance, just to let you know. So my hope is that when we meet on the 23rd, that we can lean on code enforcement to put more teeth in what this body can do. From a homeowner standpoint, I had an individual that was an Airbnb pass away in a house in my district in October of 2022, and they were and the community's still upset, saying, why can't y'all do something? Code enforcement has done great. They've sent a letter to them. We still haven't got anywhere, but do we have the ability to put an occupational tax on them? I mean, they've been operating Airbnb, and this is not the only one in Richmond County. We know that. There's more in my district that I know of, and there's all over. But this government has got to be holding people more accountable moving forward to help not only our citizens that live around this stuff, that don't want this stuff to happen, but also to make sure that it's a safety issue. I mean, there's so many places where people are living in conditions where they shouldn't be living in, but we seem to be afraid because we're going to get sued or whatever. We can't have that mentality. We've got to clean up, and my hope is that as we have the discussion even today, I hope that some commissioners will kind of voice their thoughts on this too, but we've got to be stiffer, and maybe we create some kind of tiered structure on how we hold accountability to these homeowners and business owners, because frankly, we can't continue to let it happen. I'll speak for my district. It is seriously affecting business. When we met with them, they were talking about being down 30% in their hotel business because of things that have been happening. And I think that what I gathered from the conversations, they were doing their best, but everybody around them wasn't. And I think that's where the government needs to step up and hold these people more accountable. So that's just my kind of start. But Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I want to first off say that I really do appreciate this conversation and really have appreciated working alongside with you on this one, simply because not only is this issue affecting our business community, but most definitely is affecting the residential areas as well. We had a complaint in the Harrisburg neighborhood and neighborhoods alike where there was a family living next door to another family. But the one next door, they weren't keeping their home up. They had stuff everywhere. The home smelled like raw sewage. It was a disaster. And that home has since been vacated. But from what I understand, we don't have much on our books to be able to hold, and I guess I can say it, slumlords accountable to the conditions that they're leaving neighborhoods. And you can also consider some of these business owners that Commissioner Franham is speaking of too as slumlords, because they're not holding their tenants accountable either. And we can go down the list and name neighborhood and instance after instance, complex after complex. But I think it's time for us to actually start acting, because it's affecting everything. I mean, when you have a family reaching out saying that they're at their wits' end and they want to move out of Augusta, Richmond County, that tells me that we have an issue. And so, absolutely, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for even taking this on. I think that is absolutely time for us to act, simply because it's affecting everyone at this point. Folks need to be held accountable for the conditions that they leave our communities in. And I hope that we'll take an intentional role in making that happen, or at least starting the conversation today. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Madam Administrator, can you, for the record, can we just announce when that workshop is on the 23rd? What day? 2? It's 2 o'clock on February. Is it going to be here? Right here. So I invite the public to listen, and because this is something that it's a big tackle, but we need to definitely get to moving. So any other comments before we move on? Can I get a motion to receive his information?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Voting, please. And that concludes public services. Thank you, committee.
All right, we are going to call, got it. We're going to call Finance Committee to order. Ms. Bonner, are there any additions or deletions necessary to the agenda?
No, sir. I'm sorry. No, sir.
Thank you so much. If it is the will of the Finance Committee, I would like to consider consenting items number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
So
the
moved.
whole thing. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second. Voting, Ms. Bonner.
Ms. Scott,
I'm trying to vote, but I lost my remote.
you voting?
Here it is.
Okay, it's done now. It's unanimous.
And just a point of privilege, happy Valentine's Day to the Finance Director. You're welcome. That concludes Finance Committee.
Okay.
Am I up next?
You are, ma'am.
All right. All right, I'd like to call public safety to order. Are there any deletions or completions to the agenda items today?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I would like to consent items 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8.
1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 8.
So moved.
So moved. A second.
Okay, got a motion the second. Okay, item number 3.
We have to
Okay, we
vote.
need to vote, ma'am.
Well,
Okay, go ahead and vote. There.
It's unanimous.
All right, item number 3.
Item number 3 is to receive as information from the fire chief concerning cost estimates for quick response vehicles for additional discussion.
Okay. I'd like to acknowledge District 5 Commissioner Williams.
Well, it was put on the agenda by Mr. Guilfoyle, so you can go to him first, and then you can.
Okay, he's not up here on the screen, but all right, I'll go to Super District 10, Commissioner Guilfoyle.
Good afternoon, Chief. I appreciate you coming back before us. I tell you, the last time you presented this to this body, you were very prepared, and I appreciate that. You and your staff have worked probably tirelessly to put it together. I know that this is a issue that keeps coming up. To be truthful, us utilizing the fire trucks, the $1 million pieces of equipment for something a SUV could handle will save time and money. And that was my goal when it was brought up 2 weeks ago. And I appreciate Commissioner Williams for keeping this item alive.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and good afternoon, Honorable Mayor Johnson and esteemed commission. So, Commissioner Guilford, definitely want to thank you for bringing this conversation to the forefront. I'll cover just a few points to further the discussion. So when we spoke previously, we talked about the benefits of implementing a quick response vehicle into our service delivery model. So as we discussed, it keeps much larger fire trucks in service by allowing a smaller vehicle to respond to those calls. We'll realize reduced costs in acquiring these vehicles. They are actually about or less than a third cost of a fire truck. Reduced dependence, a more sustainable replacement model that is less impacted by supply chain issues. And one of the things I did not talk about, but one of the things we can realize with this type of program is our mobile integrated health program. Mobile integrated health program is a more progressive evolutions in delivery of community-based care by sending responders and providers within their scope of practice in an expanded role through the use of non-emergent resources in a pre-hospital setting. The intent of this is to provide patient-centered health care by paramedics and other responders for medical assessments, preventive health care, and education tailored to medical needs of the individual, and also a way of connecting them to available resources. So we've seen these type of programs throughout the fire industry in other cities. They've actually been proven to lower response times. Well, they're actually been proven to lower call volume by getting ahead of the calls. I often tell people that we do a great job of responding to calls. What we can do better is trying to prevent those calls from happening. So this type of system allows us to increase our service delivery and do more for the community. So we talked about bringing some cost estimates to you. So what you can see are estimates depending on the type of vehicle that we would purchase in this instance. So vehicle itself, about $55,000 to $70,000, and then about $207,000 for equipment to go on that vehicle. And so this is this concept is more of an all hazards concept, much different than QRVs that are utilized on the EMS side. These are more integrated, more all hazards, if you will. So I put in some costs in terms of adding the 2 personnel that will be required to staff this vehicle. You know, I understand that if this is a concept that we would need to realize using our own staffing, it's certainly going to take us some time. You know, I'll remind you that our Fire Academy training program is 9 months. So it'll take us some time to realize that. But I wanted to bring this information to you. My recommendation is to just receive this as information now as we continue the conversation and continue to talk about how we would implement such a program.
All right, can I respond, Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Chief, okay, so it's $332,000 for one vehicle with 2 personnel. All right, so if we look at...
Give or take, depending on the type of vehicle that we would purchase.
Okay, so if we wanted 5 throughout the community, placed in different positions, you know, $1.5 million easy. Some of the concerns, as well as mine, is cost. I know that you are short-staffed by, I think it was 35. How many people are you short?
Vacancies throughout the department right now are at 81.
81, okay.
Throughout, from bottom to top.
All right. And every 20 is $1 million. Every 20 employees equals $1 million is what I've always been taught. is there any way that you could absorb this cost within your fire department budget for us to move forward? I don't want to answer, let's keep this conversation alive. You could go back to the drawing board with your staff saying, hey, we can't make it work, or we can. But you got to have some kind of conversation, and I definitely appreciate you bringing this forth and bringing a cost forth as well. Thank you.
I do think there is an opportunity in the future.
Yes, sir.
As we continue to train our personnel, and there may be some opportunities to realize to absorb this type of program.
I definitely appreciate this, and thank you, Commissioner, Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Chair recognizes District 5, Commissioner Williams.
Yes, I think you guys have already talked about basically what I was going to bring out. One of the reasons why we got rid of our own ambulance services because we didn't have the personnel. People were complaining about overtime and other things when it came to our own ambulances. The other point was that, like AmeriPro, when they did their presentation, they brought forward 13 ambulances as well as the QRV vehicles. So you don't know if we get somebody, they may bring QRVs with them. And thirdly, and most of all, something that I think about is that if you're going to put vehicles back on the road or what have you, we got 4 ambulances over there that we could just pull out of the mothballs instead of buying more vehicles or what have you. But with that said, as the chief said, I just make a motion that we take it as information and maybe bring it back later.
Second.
Okay. So that chair recognizes District 9 Commissioner Scott.
Thank you, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
ma'am.
Chief, I just want my colleagues to remember that we have a new firehouse that should be coming on soon. And also, could you give us an update, maybe next commission meeting, on where we are with that, please?
Sure. And I think that is one of the
That
items
is.
for
Yes.
today. So I'll be glad to update you today if you like.
Okay, with that being said, we'll receive this as information and move on down to item number 6, which we'll talk about the Fire Station 3. We got to vote, excuse me for it. Receive information, let's vote, please.
It's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
And Miss, when we talk about that, I don't know if it'll be out of order. I understand that we need fire trucks for that new station, so we can start thinking about how we're going to buy fire trucks for that new station also.
Okay. I'll put it. Item number 6 is a motion to approve the award of the bid 22-291A early site package for soil remediation, new fire station number 3 to Kolke Construction and Associates.
So once again, good afternoon, commissioners. What you have before you is the approval for our site remediation package. We initially put this item out for bid back in October and only received one response that was more than double the budget for this bid item. And so we worked with our project managers, made a few changes, and put it back out for bid. So I'm actually happy to present this to you because it actually came in under the bid, under the actual budget for the soil remediation. So this is our first step in building new Fire Station 3. Once this is awarded, we can begin that soil remediation work that needs to take place. Following that, we'll come back with another bid process for the actual building design and building. So very happy to get to this point, to actually see work beginning to happen for that fire station, that much needed fire station.
Yeah, we've been waiting for that one. That's going to be a good one for the area. That's in District 3. Okay. All right, do I have, let's see, let me go to, okay, let me go to Commissioner from the 8th.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this bid.
All right. Commissioner from the 5th, do you have anything to say before we make that motion?
No, I'll second that, but I did want, if we could, if we're not out of line, Chief, do you have any thoughts on the fire trucks that we need for that firehouse? Do you have the money? Are we gonna have to find the money?
Yes, sir. The actual unit that for that fire station has already been purchased. We already have that unit.
So you already have a fire
We
truck?
already have that unit. Although, because our fleet has depleted some, we will need to replace some other units, but we already have that unit within our.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir. The attorney's trying to get your attention, Fire Chief.
Okay. Go
I
ahead.
was trying to get Madam Chair. I believe that conversation is not germane to the motion and therefore should be discontinued.
Okay, well, let's just stick with the motion, and I'd like to see if I can get a motion to approve the award of bid. Okay, well, let's go ahead and vote for it. Got a second? Yes, Commissioner Williams. Voting. We just voted.
It's
Thank you
unanimous.
so much. That concludes public safety for the day.
Good afternoon. Call administrative service to order. Ms. Bonner, do we have any addition?
Yes, ma'am, we have a request from the administrator. You have enough? No. Here you go.
Ms. Bonner, do we have any deletion?
I think Ms. Pulliam, will you speak to your request?
Yes, ma'am. If I can delete both of my requests, there's,
Okay, so we'll add those to a consent agenda
Yes.
for deletion.
yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
We have to,
Yes, ma'am. Mhm.
can I do the consent now, or do I need?
You can.
Committee members, I would like to consent number 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and consent the addition to the,
And just for the record, the committee has no objections with this item being added.
So
Okay.
moved.
What did they ask us for? Money-wise?
Ms. Administrator.
Commissioner Williams, they're asking for $150,000 to assist with funding the urban downtown plan. I would like to bring to this body next week a proposed funding source.
That's what I was gonna ask you, where it's coming from. So if we're gonna consent this, we're gonna consent this contingent upon where the money's gonna come from.
That's correct. And this is just a recommendation, but for the body to make the decision, provided I provide you with a recommendation for a funding source.
We don't have a second. We need a second.
I second.
Okay, are we voting now, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Lewis? It's unanimous. Seems like that's it, Madam Chair. 5.
We're calling administrative service to a close. Thank you.
She deleted those. Man, your business. You got some business.
Yeah, Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir.
I'm going to call engineering services to order.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, I'm going to offer up a consent agenda of items 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14.
So moved.
I've got a motion. Is there a second? Second. Have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, commissioners will vote by the usual sign.
Ms. McKnight?
McKnight, what is, she still here? Oh, okay, very good.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll go on to agenda. Well, first of all, is there any additions or deletions?
No, sir.
All right, fantastic. Let's go to item number 5, Madam Clerk.
Item 5 is to approve the authorization and reallocation of right-of-way maintenance, quick strike 1 million, ARP funds allocation, 550,000, Windsor Spring landscapes segment irrigation system installation, 265,000, to RCCI for Augusta Engineering roadway drainage vegetation maintenance fiscal year 2023 services, charged as service provided. And 3, 185,000 to the vacant lot cleanup program. Also approved directing Augusta Finance Department issuing job ledgers accordingly.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mayor Pro Tem Garrett.
Thanks, sir. Just a quick question on this from our director.
Director Malik.
Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Malik, can you help me understand what the Windsor Spring landscape segment, where is that going? Is that the new section or is it an existing section?
So last year on June 30th, the way 1 million was distributed, there was 500,000 allocated to the irrigation system. That's going to go on the Windsor Spring. So we can landscape the median we have. So that's what 500, but estimate we have 550. So that's what we're going and asking, adding 50,000 more towards the previous allocation.
And help me on the location.
So that's all along the Windsor Spring Road, around Willis Farmer Road. And
okay.
With the new section where we did the new road. Yeah.
That was really my only question, was which section?
Is that all you have?
Yes, sir.
Mayor Johnson.
Yes, sir. Dr. Malik, it was of my recollection that these dollars were going to be targeted for cleaning the city up in emergency cases, buying equipment. If we're going to reallocate these dollars, how are we going to continue to accomplish this original mission?
Again, back in on the June 30th, 2022, there was a plan presented by the administrator. The original plan, really, there was no outline how the dollar would be utilized. And the plan was never formulated or presented, so this was the first attempt on June 30th. Administrator presented a plan that time. In that plan, there was $1 million allocated to the right-of-way maintenance, the mowing, which included $500,000 going toward the Winter Spring Road, enhancing the landscape area by adding irrigation system. And the $500,000 was going to the right-of-way mowing that was ongoing practice last year to increase 1 or 2 additional cut, and it was 6 cut last year. But this year we rebid that contract and negotiated. So we're already doing 8 cut with the previously allocated funds. So that's what I'm coming back and requesting that since we already met that frequency of 8 cuts with, reducing the cost of the service, let's reallocate that 500 to 50,000 go to Winter Spring Road, and then RCCI last year was supported by the ARP fund. This year is supported by the Stormwater Fee Fund. So I want to take that because Stormwater Fee Fund are unrestricted funds we can use for several other needs like repairing the tops and the lines, some other stuff. And then I really wanted to zero in on the vacant lot. There's no real established program, so I wanted to really create a program so it's like a seed money in that program, and then somehow like escrow fund or something, so we have a very established program as we move forward.
I still have a concern about how we clean the city up. Is there any way that what funds are allocated for, like now there's no grass cutting? What resources are available for just general cleanup? You ride around our city, and it's litter filled roads everywhere. Do you have any resources that are allocated just for not cutting but maintaining cleanup?
So our entryways and highly visible roadways are on 158 central line miles, the linear miles, that are covered under the current contract. Current contract not only mowing, but also include the litter pickup from that right of way, and also some spraying to get rid of the weeds that are coming out of the median and all of this stuff. We just started litter pickup as a part of the landfill cleanup effort on the Deansbridge Road, because that's more or less from the holler from Bobby Jones all the way to the landfill entrance. So that got implemented, and they started this month actually. So that's gonna be once a month to clean up that roadway. So, but in general, back to your question, really there's no dedicated funds allocated just to pick up the litter. We do have a cost. Engineering does have a cost. It's $500 per central linear mile to pick up the litter. The challenge is that we know we pick up today and we go back maybe 2 to 3 days back, it's again the same. So that's an ongoing challenge.
Thank you, Director. Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Mayor Pro Tem Garrett.
I'd like to make a motion to approve this item.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, commissioners vote by the usual sign.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move on to item number 6.
Item number 6 is to approve and authorize allocating $800,000 from the Street Lighting Program ARPA designated funds to Green Street lighting reconstruction at segment between 5th Street and East Boundary.
Commissioner Williams.
Yes, sir. I'm just a little confused. Approve and authorize allocating $800,000 from street lighting program. I mean, are we still carrying a deficit there?
Is that a question for the? We're trying to get some clarity here.
You're needing Dr. Malik or finance?
Do you need some clarity from
Yeah.
Dr. Malik, or what are we?
Administrator.
Somebody?
Sure, I would like for you to get some additional clarity from the finance director concerning our streetlight
Okay.
and ARP balance.
Come on up here. Come on up here.
Well, if you would, come on up, Finance Director. As the chairman will authorize whatever direction that we take at this point.
You know.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
just gonna
you,
be
Madam
good.
Director, and thank you, Commissioner Williams.
I'm just gonna be
Love talk about streetlights.
Commissioner Williams?
Yeah, I've been told that we have a lot of money there, that we transferred the money there when Mr. Donald was here in street lighting.
Okay. In the ARP allocation, as it was originally approved by the commission, there was $6 million dedicated to streetlights.
Okay.
That was split into two parts. $1.5 million was to cover the deficits from 21 and 22. $4.5 million was labeled system maintenance and expansion, kind of loose terminology, but generally to make the system bigger and better. Okay, so it was understood that the $1.5 million to address the deficit would carry us through 22. In order not to begin accumulating another round of deficits in that, there was going to have to be a fee adjustment for the streetlight program, which would be effective in 23. As we all know, those streetlight charges go out on the property tax bill towards the end of the year. So as it stands right now, the fee has not been adjusted. So there would potentially, with no adjustment, be approximately $750,000 to $1 million deficit in the streetlight fund, if there is no fee adjustment prior to the 2023 billing. So if the fees are adjusted and no further use of the distribution, if you don't have to move money out of the $4.5 million, which is for expansion to cover a deficit for this year, then you would have $4.5 million to expand the system. As it sits right now in the current budget, because we have not yet addressed a possible fee structure, I believe there is 3.6 or 3.3 that is labeled for expansion, because we have tentatively obligated a portion of that $4.5 million just in case we have to cover a deficit in 2023 due to no fee adjustment.
That's where this money's coming from.
Out of that 3.3 or 3.6, and right now off the top of my head, I don't remember which one it is.
Okay, I'm good.
Further questions, Commissioner Williams?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Garrett.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, commissioners will vote by the usual sign.
It's unanimous.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We'll move on to item number 15.
Item 15 is a discussion on consolidating our cleanup services such as grass cutting, landscape, tree cutting, etc., under one umbrella.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and I will look for any discussion from any members that's on the committee or off the committee. I did want to, and this is similar to what the mayor was talking about a little bit earlier in terms of our grass cutting and landscaping. I put this on because I know there was a number of us up here in terms of the commission that has been here for a minute that have had been at loggerheads trying to find out who is responsible for what when it comes to grass cutting and landscaping, whether it was engineering, whether it was RCCI, Central Service, whoever, and it's sometimes become an exercise in futility. Now, we are currently, our slogan, the Garden City. Some say the Garbage City, which really disturbs me. But then sometimes we look in certain areas, and that's what we see. One weekend out of the year, we can do a great job out in when the Masters come. But I can understand why with 51 weeks out of the year, we can't do a great job for the entire city that has a moniker of the Garden City. And so with that being said, I wanted to find out or have a discussion on potentially consolidating our cleanup services into one umbrella, whatever that may look like. I don't have a silver bullet, but I'm just saying that even if that means a landscaping and grass cutting department, I don't know. But what I do know is that this has caused great consternation amongst many commissioners, and more importantly, with the citizens of Augusta, Richmond County, and especially in underserved and underprivileged communities. And so I would open up the floor for any discussion or suggestions as it relates to the potential of consolidating duplicative services, which is what we have in many, well, when I'll say like services in different departments that could possibly come through and help us out in terms of the cemetery, in terms of our rights of ways and so forth. First in the chute, I see Mr. Mayor. Please.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I don't get more emails or calls on any subject, it's regarding the appearance of our city. As you know, our economic driver, as we try to create opportunities and attract companies and visitors to our city, it's an ongoing problem. It's discouraging to know that often when I call and ask who's responsible for cleaning or maintaining a street, sometimes department directors have to refer me other places because they say, unfortunately, that's not under my jurisdiction. So I think it's important as we try to grow the city, as we try to attract companies and attract residents to want to live here, I'd like to restore a sense of pride. And I think we shouldn't have to drive across the bridge to another county to look at our entryways and our gateways. As a city, we should take ownership of what our appearance looks like. So I would like to consolidate those departments into one so there's accountability to it, or at least start having a conversation about how we get that done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also see Mayor Pro Tem Garrett.
Thank you, Chairman. This question is for the administrator, if that's okay.
Yes, Administrator.
Administrator, I have just a few questions, just trying to, as we're forming this conversation, we've had it in the past, but I'm not sure the commission ever really took full action of how to consolidate and just to make this whole process more efficient. So how many departments currently cut right-of-ways or are responsible for contractors that cut right-of-ways?
Right now, I would say one. If you recall, the most recent action by this body for the budget was to streamline services, and that removed right-of-way maintenance from Parks and Recreation to the engineering department.
Correct, okay. And I thought we did take that action. I was just making sure that that was the plan moving forward. And how many departments cut and maintain our facilities, grounds? And, I'm talking Parks
Sure.
and Rec and cemeteries and.
Right now, I'm thinking 7. And that's simply because departments such as the Augusta Fire Department are responsible for their maintenance. Departments such as Central Services handles the big box facilities. Parks and Recreation has various parks and recreation sites that they maintain. Augusta Utilities handles the grass at their facilities. So that answers your question, but in addition to that, this body directed the administrator, myself, to conduct a right-sizing study or provide you with a right-sizing plan within the next 120 days. I've already started down that path, and one of those items that you will see is the consolidation of duplicative services, which involves us identifying departments and services that conduct services that are like-minded or in kind. So again, that is coming to you within the next 120 days now, within the next 113 days. And so this is being taken into consideration.
All right, thank you. And how many are responsible for tree maintenance and other landscaping? Is that kind of the same as the facility maintenance?
Yes.
Okay. So as the mayor was talking earlier in regards to trash on our right-of-ways, I know we use engineering, we use RCCI, but I know that there was a kind of a reconfigure with RCCI in regards to helping with our cemeteries. Do we still have available crews that could help on some of the right-of-way cleanups, just with the trash and things, especially during the winter times?
So the crews that were assigned to the cemeteries affected Parks and Recreation. The engineering department still has crews that are assigned for right-of-way maintenance, so that was not adjusted.
Okay. Do we know how many crews? Dr. Malik?
Dr. Malik, would you come up to the mic?
Yes, sir. So, in theory, we have 9 assigned
In
crew.
theory.
How many open positions do we?
Right now, actually, we're getting to our 3. In general, we have around 4 or 5, maybe.
Okay, so roughly they're running half. So, what is needed there? I know that they need the officers to watch over them, but is that really what holds back those crews from being available?
Yes, sir. Yeah, the work detail supervisor, the
Yeah,
officers
supervisor.
who has to do it. So engineering has 2 their own inside the engineering, and we get the inmates from the warden, and then warden was supposed
You
to
have 2
assign
what?
9.
You have 2 what?
We have 2 internal crew, which we created, engineering created, and is so those 2, the supervisors, work detail supervisor, are an engineering workforce, and it's supported by the warden. And then warden also has 9 assigned to us, but with all the new assignment and all that, and with COVID.
Do any of the right-of-way contractors work during the winter? I know that that's kind of been the issue here lately with some of our conversations is, the trash that accumulates. Because, during the summer, we know we're dealing with grass cutting, and you have your schedule there where I know you've got it up to, what, 8 cuts a year? Is that correct? 6 or 8?
Yeah. So right now, they start working till end of October, but this new contract, we do have a line item for litter pickup. It was not there before with lumps, so we do have ability, if we find the resources, to expand during winter time.
How much would be needed for that?
So we got like 1,100 central line miles of the road. So if we do all 1,100 one-time pickup, is $550,000. But if we target it, we have around 465 or 365 very visible roadway around that. So 500 is half of that. So it's somewhere around 200,000 per one pickup. So maybe if we do once a month, I don't know whether that's enough, but still it's kind of $600,000-$700,000.
Wow, okay. Thank you, Dr. Malik. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We're going to go to District 1 Commissioner Johnson and then Commissioner Scott, and we'll follow on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A question for our administrator. Would consolidating these services free up dollars in our budget, or would it call for a higher expense? Or is that something that we should just wait until your report comes back and show?
I would rather you allow me to wait, as we are in the discovery stages right now concerning the options that will be presented, but one of them, which is a best practice, and that is to consolidate duplicative services.
Okay. And follow-up question.
Yes.
I know last year and year before, I had a question about a lot of the vacant lots and whether or not we had them on like an actual schedule. So when I know we just finished talking about schedules to a certain degree, but when a constituent calls and says, hey, the drain on Wallace Street in East Augusta is 7 foot tall, I think it would make sense for us to be able to say, hey, don't worry, on the such and such day of this month or, next month, you can expect this to happen. Is there any plan to like put a concrete schedule in place so that we'll know when to tell our constituents when they can expect for things like that to be cut? I know that's different than vacant lots, but we're talking like the drains, areas like that. Is there a way that we can get that on a real schedule to just know automatically that it should be cut? I don't know if that's an in-house thing or something that we deal with our contractors on, but maybe that's just something to take into consideration with your report versus trying to answer today. And that even goes to, like, I know it's kind of off topic, but the blight remediation. We're knocking houses down, but it's so sporadic that we don't see the impact. Is there a way that we can actually put that on a schedule, like block by block, neighborhood by neighborhood? So I think keeping those kind of things in the back of our minds in these conversations can help us get to just a little bit more efficiency, because we're going off of what staff is telling us, and sometimes it varies. And that's not an indictment on staff, because we know that it's not always in staff's hands. But at any rate, let's just keep that in mind. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Commissioner Scott?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comments was in line with Mr. Johnson. I just want to make sure when if we decide to consolidate services, I think we need to get on some type of schedule, and not just because I call, because something is happening in the community that the grass get cut. So I think we need to, if we're going to go that route, make sure we start looking at how and what are the priorities, because I do know downtown and gateways are what we want to see, but we have some problems, especially in District 9, that we need to really, really clean up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Scott. There's no question about that. District 6, Commissioner Lewis.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If Dr. Malik would come back up.
Dr. Malik.
In relation to the 8 cuts that we've contracted with the stormwater drain fees, services that been provided, and we're looking at ways to try to accommodate us doing a better job of cleaning up the city post grass cutting season, which I think you alluded to the fact that actually stops in October.
Yes.
When does it begin? When does it start the next year?
It's going to start now. It start March.
March. So it's safe to say from October to March, there's nothing that the contractors that we have that are operating under the storm water fee program does for the city from October to March. Is that safe to say?
February, end of October, so November to February.
Right. So we're talking end of October to end of February.
Yes, sir.
End of February. And you said that we're looking at about $500,000 more to accommodate winter cleanup from the proposed time of October, end of October to end of February. And that would just entail just clean up paper, trash, debris, and you say it's about $500,000 cost for that time period?
That was for the entire network. We have 1,100 miles of road, but right now the contract services only cover the entryway highly visible. That is around 158.
Okay, so
it's gonna be much less. Yes.
So your cost estimate was for a greater
Yes, sir.
coverage than what we're doing now with that particular group.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just for litter pickup.
Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Lewis. Let me add this to the equation, because for us commissioners that sit here and try to do our best for our citizens, they want to see results. They want to see results, just basic results. Potholes being fixed, grass being cut, that sort of thing. And I understand about the importance of our entryways and that sort of thing, but I need for you all to understand about the importance of the inner portions of our cities, even the arterial roads. That's important to our citizens, because if they don't see anything else, they want to at least call you, or can you get this doggone grass cut that's in the roadway? Or can you fix a pothole that's sitting on whatever street that's been sitting there 8 inches deep for the last, I don't know how long, call 311 1,000 times. I'm just using this as an example. It's important for you all to understand whether it's engineering, administrator, finance, or whomever, from our position as commissioners, these are the things that they most want us to see. The other stuff, yeah, they want to see other things too, but just the basic services is what they want to see done. And when they call 311 and they don't get a response, or it takes 8 to 9 weeks to get a call back about when it'll be serviced and that sort of thing, those are the things that causes me and others up here to say, hey, look, let's look at consolidating this thing, concentrate specifically on our grass cutting, our tree cutting, landscaping, and that sort of thing, and come on a regular schedule so that we'll know exactly what's happening. And even if it's broken down where each commissioner knows that within their district they're going to have X, Y, Z. I know it may seem like more work for you, but the citizens need to see something better than what they see today. And so I would ask that you all, I'm not saying you don't take it seriously, but do take this under consideration, because these are the things that we deal with on a daily basis. The mayor as well. These are the most calls that I get, and many others get a lot of calls in reference to that. Those are the basic things that they need to see. So I don't know if there's any necessary action that needs to be taken today, because we've already tasked the city administrator to bring us back. Now, how many days are we in now? That's it? How long?
113.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Okay, well, let's do a comprehensive plan here, understanding what all has been said and the veracity in which has been spoken, and really hear our cries and our pleas, because Garden City, think about that. The very term and the moniker Garden City, that should mean something to all of us, and we should take some pride in that. And if it's not really the Garden City, and not only us, I want to say this for the public too, our citizens have to take some responsibility and accountability as well. There's no reason for you to be tossing something out the window. You're not going to go pick it up. Somebody's going to have to pick that up. So as Director Malik has said, you could do something within a couple of days, and I've got this problem in the backside of Gordon Woods, out by Barton Village. We clean it up one day, and about 2 or 3 days next, I'm getting calls again. And we just had 18 bags picked up just 3 days ago. 18 bags worth of trash rolled by there today. It's starting to come down already. And so we've got to take pride as citizens. We've got to take pride as a community, as a staff, as this commission, as the mayor, and we're trying to do that. So let's not let that get lost in the discussion when you're doing your research and the tasking that you've been given. And I certainly hope that something comes back, because in my opinion, I just believe we have duplicative services that we can put under an umbrella and discuss a better way of moving forward. And perhaps while you're looking, if there are other municipalities, what are they doing? Do they have a landscaping division, or do we? Well, this would be good to include some of our volunteers, but we have to have someone that's heading that, and that's putting that out there as well. Any further discussion, comments in reference to this at all? All right, hearing none, we'll just consider this as information at this particular point, without objection. All right, it's considered as information without objection. Without any further business coming before the engineering services, we stand adjourned.